Bibby Rizzo talking again to the void and seeing if anyone out there can hear me. Alrighty, so over the course of this month, I've visited several movies that have been, well, either directly from or inspired by H.P. Lovecraft, and admittedly, I'm sort of a slut for anything Lovecraft related in terms of media. I've been hooked on it for years. So, this month I started with, well, The Void, and The Color Out of Space I just did recently. Now, I'd also put Annihilation a little bit into that corner. While not directly, there's definitely some themes. So I figured as we're coming down to the end of the month, what's one more? And this is a movie I've been meaning to see for some time. Though I had heard of it off and on, but at first I didn't really connect it with the Lovecraft story because, well, I wouldn't have imagined them making a story based on this one. That is From Beyond. Now, Lovecraft, there's a lot of Lovecraft adaptations out there. Some good. Reanimator, the Lovecraft Society's Whisperer in Darkness, and Call of Cthulhu. Some not so good, like The Unnameable was okay, and The Tomb that was weird, and barely even reminiscent, other than the fact that they talk about the Lovecraft story, The Tomb, in it. But this one was from 1986. Stuart Gordon, who also directed Reanimator, which is a very good one. And so I was hopeful. Main issue with From Beyond as a story, though, translating it to a movie, is my copy of it is all of 6 pages long. So, kind of difficult to make a movie out of that. So, some embellishments naturally had to take place. Now, the original story is a simple one. One scientist, Crawford Tillinghast, invites his friend, our unnamed narrator, to see his experiment. They sit down at a machine, and Crawford warns our protagonist not to move. The machine will stimulate the pituitary gland and allow you to awaken other senses so you can see and perceive things you otherwise couldn't. Flips the switch, and begins to see strange things all around him, like creatures in the air that have always been there, but we've been unable to see. And as long as you don't move, they won't see you. But Dr. Tillinghast seems to imply that there are stronger things that are coming, and he's been essentially feeding his servants to them, but it will indicate that disintegration is quite painless. Our protagonist is in a quick panic, shoots the machine. The doctor dies from his sudden movement as the things seize him. I believe that's sort of implied, but that's kind of the gist you get. And story more or less ends with him giving his statement to the police. Now, that would make an interesting 10-minute short, but a full movie, I was a little unsure of how they'd go with it. Now, first off, they added a lot more characters, first off. Dr. Tillinghast is now not exactly the main villain, but more of he's sort of a link between the villain and the protagonist, as he's kind of fulfills both roles. The main villain would be a new doctor, Dr. Pretorius, who is the actual creator of the machine with with Crawford as his assistant. So, the beginning of the movie more or less goes like the story of the machine gets turned on, they see strange things. However, then Dr. Pretorius in this one gets killed by something that he saw, and Crawford destroys the machine. So a little bit of a role reversal there. Now the main story picks up when another psychologist wants to see what happened because she notes some strange changes in Crawford, that his pituitary gland is, well, bigger than it should be, and wonders if their machine or their experiment might have worked. So she, along with a representative from the cop, to go back and repeat the experiment and begin seeing strange things. But things begin going out of control as she wants to see more. The machine seems to have when it stimulates the pituitary gland, it seems to have a addictive sort of it becomes either addictive and quite stimulating as the character's desires begin running out of control. And, well, the characters more or less are no longer in control of themselves or their senses, as whenever the machine goes on, monsters appear. In particular, a monstrous version of Dr. Pretorius who's trying to beckon them in and to absorb them. And things go out of control from there, and it adds quite a bit of it. Though at points I was surprised the movie kept going, as there are several points where I was expecting it to do a traditional Lovecraft, okay, cut, end before fully resolving things, but I do think it does end at a good and Lovecraftian point. So, overall, I did enjoy this movie. Then Stuart Gordon is the director, like I said before, and I'm kind of a fan of some of the ones he's done. In particular, his work with Lovecraftian things. He also did the Masters of Horror, Dreams in the Witch House, and, well, he did Reanimator, which has become quite the cult classic. Jeffrey Combs stars as Crawford in this one, and he's good in it. I've been a big fan of his since Reanimator, and he's the definitive Herbert West, so him playing a very different kind of scientist in this one was interesting, and I was glad to see it. But Barbara Crampton as the psychologist who comes in, Dr. McMichaels, then she's is definitely kind of steals the show. As she's does a wonderful of trying to to save Crawford, as well as figure out the experiment, as well as reeling with her own personal confusions and demons as the machine fully manifests. So, the effects, for the most part, are very good. This is some good classic 80s monster effects, up until about the end, where they get a little more lackluster. But from what I was reading, the budget for the film was actually ran out a little bit before some of the final effects could be completely finished, but it's only really noticeable in one or two shots. Otherwise, the effects hold up pretty well overall. A lot of squishy bits. So, I do recommend this one pretty highly, actually. For Lovecraft adaptations, it is one of the better ones, even if it was from a story I was not expecting to be adapted. Uh, this one I'm going to give a solid 4 out of 5 MacGuffins. Not quite enough to get into my favorites, but it is a very solid movie. I believe that's all there is to say on this one. Since someone destroyed my train of thought, didn't you? You're good at that. Not a thought in your head, is there? Didn't even watch the movie with me. Alright, well, take care.